Om. Gurur Brahma, Gurur Vishnu, Gurur Devo Maheshwaraha, Guru Sakshat Param Brahma, Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha, Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. So, we are in Amrit Anubhav, chapter 5, Satchidanand Padatraya Vivarna, non-comprehension or evaluation and inadequacy of the term Satchidananda. And here we are seeing that whenever we speak with Vaikhari, speaking with Vaikhari means with the gross speech. Gross speech only creates duality. This versus that. It can never bring about the unity. Because what is the basic rule of Vaikhari? The thought of the object and the object of the thought are separate to each other. The computer, the thought of computer is in my mind, but the computer is outside. What is Madhyama? The thought of computer is also in the mind and the computer is also in the mind. What is Pashyanti? Where the thought and the object both are in unmanifest form. And what is Para? Para is where it does not matter whether the thought is there or the object is there. There is no person to perceive it. Or perceiving is taking place, but there is no perceiver born there. Okay. So coming back to Vaikhari, Vaikhari is gross speech. Gross speech is where separation, duality is the norm. And therefore, here it says, it would appear that words like Satchidananda are inadequate to describe the truth. Any attempt to comprehend the truth at the Vaikhari Vani level only creates the pairs of opposites. That is the norm. You can't do anything about it. Vaikhari means opposites, where you are separate to the other. You have taken the Vaikhari, meaning the waking, to be real. Giving reality to the waking state means me versus you, I versus the other, aham versus idam. See, all these words, the pair of opposites, are only pointers to the one truth. This is what we need to process. What is that? Here we Satchidananda Bhede Chalali Tinhi Pade Pari Tinhi Uni Anande Keliyene. In this way, the pointer referring differently as existence, consciousness, bliss, as also their absence, are one in pure bliss. So what is that pure bliss? Where the opposites cancel each other. Where the opposites cancel each other, that is the bliss. What does cancelling each other mean? That both of them, the presence and the absence of opposites, May be present, may not be present. But what is that substratum? What is that base? What is that denominator? Because of uh, by whose presence these two are known. What are known? The opposites are known. That is the thought presented. But what happens to us? We get lost in the opposites. We get lost in how beautiful day it is today. Yesterday was bad. Again, you're comparing with yesterday. I hope the beautiful sunshine that is there today, it continues tomorrow also. Again, gone. We are never able to, through mind is thinking thoughts. Mind is nothing but opposites. Mind cannot exist as unity. Mind is duality. Where this imagination or duality, that consciousness in which duality is imagined is called mind. That infinite water where duality is imagined is called ocean and wave. See? So, Dhaneshwar Maharaj, Swamiji says here, as in the case of camphor, that was the example we are looking before in the previous verse, as in the case of camphor, these three words, Sat Chid Anand, what did we see there? The softness, the whiteness, and the fragrance. In the previous verse, that's what we saw. Sat Chid Anand. Same way, these three words, Satchidananda, which are used differently at different times along with their corresponding absences, are popular words for referring to the truth. They are only pointers to the truth. Are they the truth? No. Then what are they? They are pointers to the truth. Because the word Sat comes in your mouth, then goes away. Then Chit comes, it also goes away. Anand, it comes and it goes away, the word. Then what is that which does not come and which does not go away? Think. That one you are, which is illuminating the presence of the word Sat or Chit or Anand, and also illuminating their opposite. What is their opposite? The absence of Sat, the absence of Chit, and absence of Anand. But which is this absence? It is relative, because Sat, Chit, Anand, these three words are at the relative level. Relative again meaning where there is coming and going. However, all the three are absent in truth. Just as the poison is meaningless to the poison itself, so the word Satchidananda, as well as Asat, Achit, and Dukkham, all the six have no meaning in the absolute truth. I gave, or Jnaneshwar Maharaj gave this example, just as day and night have no meaning in the sun. Heat and cold have no meaning for the sun. Not heat and cold, heat and light has got no meaning for the sun. Exactly the same way, the word Satchidanand do not illuminate the truth because they are finite words. They're only finite words. So when we use, why you stop at Satchidananda, you can say Nitya, Shuddha, Buddha, Mukta. Then Nitya, Anitya, Shuddha, Ashuddha, Buddha, Abuddha, Mukta, Amukta. All words have their opposite. All of them become important in revealing the truth. They can be used as pointers to the truth, but from the absolute standpoint, there is nothing like such. There is nothing called Satchidananda, or there is nothing called Asat, Achit, or Dukkham, or there is nothing called Nitya, Anitya, Ashuddha, Shuddha, Ashuddha, Buddha, Buddha, etc. Just as from water's point of view, there is nothing called ocean or wave. From gold's point of view, there is nothing called ornaments. See? From space point of view, there is nothing called directions. All these are words only, but these are pointers. You take one of them and you sit down. Acha, like that I am. This personality called whoever you are, it will vanish just like that. And in its place, the self will reveal. All the three pairs mean only Ananda. Why is only the word Ananda used and not Sat and Chit? Shakti is referred to as Ananda. Speech is speech is only in the purview of manifestation of Ananda Tattva. See, you have to understand this. Why only Ananda and not Satchit? What is the cause of speech? I'm asking. What is the cause of speech? What is the source of speech? From where does the speech manifest? I'm asking.
The unmanifest mind, Swamiji.
Good. What is another word for unmanifest?
Prakriti, Avyakta.
Prakriti, Avyakta. Something else at an individual level?
Impure mind.
Your Avyakta is totality, individual level?
Impure mind, duality?
No. Avyakta is not impure mind. What is Avyakta? Deep sleep state is Avyakta at individual level. Remember? All things is correct, but you need to know that all these are parallel to each other. Avyakta, unmanifest, deep sleep state are all same. One is at totality, one is at individuality. So what is the cause? Where are the thoughts? Thoughts are in the waking and the dream. What is the cause? Cause is the deep sleep state. Understand? And what is the, what is your level of Ananda in waking? What is your level of Ananda in dream? And what is your level of Ananda in deep sleep state? Where do you experience the maximum bliss? Relatively speaking, in the deep sleep, isn't it? In the unmanifest. So unmanifest becomes the cause and the manifest becomes the effect. So Ananda is the cause, that is Prakriti, that is Shakti, that is the Alhadini Shakti, or the other half of the Shiva. That is the potentiality, and it is necessarily of the nature of Ananda. And it manifests as the thoughts, as the Madhyama and Vaikhari. So it begins from Para, then comes the Pashyanti, then comes the Madhyama, subtle. Pashyanti is the causal, Madhyama is the subtle, and Vaikhari is the gross, where the separation becomes complete. From transcendental to causal to subtle to gross. Now, if you just look at that, just going a little bit away from the topic, not really speaking, but if everything is the result or manifestation is happening from the state of bliss, then can we ever remain miserable in our waking life or dream life? Is there any excuse to be miserable? No. Then why are we behaving opposite? When everything is a manifestation of Ananda, then why are we miserable? So then what has to be done? What should be our disposition? Let every word, let every action, let every association, let every thought be an expression of Anand. That choice is given to us, no? See? Then we are in tune with the truth. But the moment we go the other way, then problem. Then we concretize the personality, and concreting personality concretizes only because it accepts the duality as real. That I am other than the body, that the world is other than me, that I popped into this world and one day I will pop out of the world. Then it crystallizes. But once you see that unmanifest, unmanifest is, yes, it is necessarily the nature of Ananda. Unmanifest is Ananda. Oh, so all thoughts have come out of that. You start contemplating, you can't find a reason to be miserable then. Then where is misery? Misery is self-created, not the self, the absolute self. Because of your attachments, misery is created. Naturally, only everything is expression of the bliss only. See, let it continue that way. How wonderful. All the three pairs means only Ananda. So Sukha, Dukkha, Chit, Achit, Sat, Asat, Ananda, Dukkham is nothing but expression, because that unmanifest, which is of the nature of Ananda, Ananda alone is expressing as the opposites at the Vaikhari level. Why is only the word Ananda used and not Sat and Chit? Shakti is referred to as Ananda. Speech is only in the purview of manifestation or Ananda Tattva, meaning without the relative base of Ananda, of the unmanifest, or at the totality level, Avyakta, you cannot have speech happening. You cannot have speech happening. Is there any speech in the absolute truth? No. Then where is Shiva Shakti? From Ishvara Advayavad, from the Kashmiri Shaivism point of view, the phenomena of Shiva Shakti is always taking place. Paramatma is, Paramashiva is there, and Shiva Shakti, the phenomena is continuously, it's unstoppable. And then within that manifest phenomena of Shiva Shakti, the Shakti again on the other, what does it go through? What is her nature? Manifest or unmanifest? Understand? Manifest or unmanifest. And then when she manifests, how does she manifest? She manifests as Para, Pashyanti, Madhyama, and Vaikhari. The grossification that is the journey of grossification. Catch this when you wake up in the morning. This is what is happening. This is the journey your mind is taking from unmanifest mind to manifest mind. Watch, slow down a little bit. Otherwise, run everywhere. Speech is only in the purview of manifestation or ananda. Therefore, all manifestations are ananda only, meaning bliss only. In the absence of manifestation, who will talk with whom? In the absence of manifestation, and manifestation is necessarily duality. Understand? If there is no duality, then who will teach whom? Who will listen to what? Who will give satsang to whom? Who will listen to the satsang? Who is the guru? Who is the shishya? There is no separation then. When there is no manifestation, there is no separation. If there is no separation, then there is no teaching. Catch this point. What we are talking about is principles. We are not talking about our daily problems. We are talking about the principle of how manifestation has come about. From absolute level, no manifestation. From relative level, manifestation is the effect, cause is the unmanifestation. Unmanifestation at individual level is called deep sleep state. At totality level, it's called avyakta. Both are of the nature of bliss alone. And if bliss is the cause, then how can the effect be blisters? It also has to be bliss. But is that our experience? Are we living in that manner? Are we continuously in the bliss? Bliss does not mean be laughing all the time. No, it doesn't mean that way. Bliss means contentment, inspiration, clarity, positivity, in spite of good or bad experiences. That's what I'm talking about. Because when the unmanifest becomes manifest, remember, when it manifests, opposites are created, duality is created. So Sat or Chit, good and bad, Suras and Asuras, inside and outside, both are expressions of bliss alone. We have to develop that vision. And that vision will only develop when we are not obsessed with this waking world. When we are, while living in this world, our attention is on that indivisible principle. When our attention is on that constant principle, then the veil will be pulled away and you will see the whole world as it is. And what is that as it is? You will see the world not separate from you. It's one. In other words, you will not see the world only. You will see only yourself everywhere. Just like you see yourself everywhere in your body. But you don't stop using the words eyes, nose, hands, legs, head, back, front. But you know you are pervading the body, you are the body. Imagine that experience extending till infinity, in and through the waking, the dream, deep sleep, everything is covered by this, that you are pervading everything. that you are everything, how will it be? See. Therefore, all manifestations, the entire manifestations, whether you call it Vaikhari or you call it the world, is an expression of Ananda only. So all your experiences of misery are imagined misery. All your experiences of dukkham are imagined dukkham. As long as dukkha, as long as opposites are given the value and importance and reality, till then misery will be real and the opposite, the joy will be real. But when this is recognized that all the opposites cannot express without the constant principle, or even if you go back, what is the going back? That all the opposites are only manifestations of the bliss. All the manifestations, opposite manifestations are nothing but bliss incarnate. What would be like? What will be that disposition like? Krishna Chandra Bhagavan, so many difficulties came in his life. Ramchandra ji, so many difficulties came in his life. What was their disposition? And what is our disposition? Correct your course of approach to life. This is the correction. That the entire experience of the gross and subtle is the manifestation of bliss and bliss alone. Which bliss? The unmanifest, the avyakta, the Shakti of the Lord. See, when consciousness chooses to manifest, that is referred to as Ananda. On the ocean of bliss, there cannot be anything but waves of bliss. So we say there are waves on a river and there are waves on the ocean. The waves on the river are born out of desire to merge into the ocean. Therefore, the river is running and gushing towards her beloved. And as a result of that, the waves appear. So those are waves of separation. Those are waves of desire. Whereas ocean is also moving. Waves are created in the ocean. But where is ocean going? Nowhere. Then what is the nature of the waves on the ocean? If the ocean is content, desireless, then all the waves that are appearing in the ocean are also of that nature. They are of the nature of bliss. So which one are you? Are you that divided consciousness which is rushing, desiring to merge into the reality? Then the thoughts that will appear will not be of nature of bliss. But if you take this position that I am complete in essence. I don't have to reach anything. I don't have to run away from anything. I am complete in essence. Then the resultant thoughts that will appear will be that of contentment, will be that of blessedness, auspiciousness, will be free of desires, will be expressing, will be a reflection of the nature of the divine. See? Because on the water, waves cannot stop. Waves will come, waves will go. Waves will come, waves will go. Same way, thoughts will come, thoughts will go. Thoughts will come, thoughts will go. So when we are looking at the thoughts, have we taken them to be the reality? Or is our attention on the source of those thoughts? Now, this is the correction that we have to bring about within us. That every word, every thought that is coming is from the bliss, from the avyakta. And avyakta, what is avyakta? The inseparable from the Shakti. Avyakta, another word for avyakta is Shakti. What is Shakti? Shakti is inseparable from the Shiva, the conscious principle. So why does Shakti express herself? When the expression or non-expression of the Shakti is her nature. A manifestation or unmanifestation, expression or non-expression of the Shakti is the nature of Shakti. The conscious principle, the Atmik Tattva, it remains the constant. But when the Atma becomes conscious, becomes aware of its Shakti, becomes aware of its potentiality, when you become aware of your mind when you wake up, then alone manifestation begins, no? Meaning then alone the thoughts start appearing. In deep sleep, you are not aware of your Shakti, potentiality. You are not aware of your mind. True or not? In meditation also, you are aware of your mind, but what you are aware of, that mind is unmanifest. But your attention is not on the mind. If your attention is on the mind in meditation, then after some time, the thoughts will appear. So you don't go into meditation to think about mind. You go into meditation to be the self. There's a difference in that. You don't want to go to the unmanifest. You want to go to the conscious principle in meditation. Merely chitta vritti nirodha, that means we have gone to unmanifest. Forcefully or naturally, doesn't matter. But until and unless we become aware that we are the one, and this manifestation and unmanifestation which is taking place, that is the nature of the potentiality, and that potentiality is nothing but me. This is the penultimate step, not the final step. Just as the ocean knows, all the waves are nothing but me alone. The waves cannot be outside the ocean. Do you have this feeling that all the thoughts are me alone? That they cannot be outside of me? Do you have, and what is thoughts? The entire creation you know only through thoughts. So what is the conclusion? The whole creation is in me alone. See? And we are not trying to get you entangled in words. This, think clearly, think coolly. So when consciousness chooses to manifest, consciousness, the avyakta, consciousness, the ananda. So what is ananda? When the consciousness chooses to manifest, that very moment ananda begins. Manifest, that is referred to as ananda. Because what is the stage before ananda? Think when you get up in the morning, there is no doubt in your mind that you are existing, right? But when you wake up, what is the first thought? I am. It's a thought-free recognition that I am. No thoughts in the mind, but you know you are awake now. What has happened? First, in deep sleep, you are only existing. The moment you wake up, the first thing is now you have become conscious of your existence, that I am. Understand? And the moment you become conscious of your existence, the moment you become conscious of yourself, that, but as what? Did you become conscious of yourself as the Atma? No. You became conscious of yourself as the body or the mind or the breath or whatever. And from that very moment, the opposites, the thoughts begin. And this is your daily experience. This is not some special event that is taking. Every moment, every day, you're going through this. Catch it. It's only a question of catching it. Catching meaning being aware of it. So how do we be aware of it? Just like you don't have to get up with an alarm, or if you do this experiment with yourself, while going to sleep, you go to sleep with Ram, 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 Ram. You'll wake up with Ram, 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 Ram. So you keep this thought when going to sleep, that when I will wake up, first, in deep sleep, I am existence, and other times also I am existence, but okay. Then when the moment I wake up, I become conscious of my existence, and then I will be aware of the thoughts multiplying in the mind. Are those thoughts of the nature of desire, or are those thoughts the nature of bliss/contentment? Okay. You go to sleep with this thought. Because while going to sleep also, same thing is happening. You are going the other way. In the morning, the journey is outwards. While going to sleep, the journey is inwards. From manifestation to unmanifestation. And in the morning, from unmanifestation to manifestation. So catch it. Bhagwan has given us such a wonderful opportunity every day. Then you will also write another book like Amrit Anubhav of your experience. Because that will be your direct experience then. The wave may move from one spot to another, but to the ocean, the movement or change of place has no meaning. The wave is always here in the ocean, not there out of it. Whether you think of past, whether you think of future, or you think of the present moment, you are always there, no? You're always there. Thoughts are changing. Thoughts are of the past. Thoughts are of the future. Thoughts are of the present. Or thoughts are of the immediate past. When I say, oh, what did I say just now? You will say, oh, thoughts are of the immediate past, because you will remember it, what I just said. But you are always there. And that past is also remembered in the now. The future is also remembered in the now, the here and now. Our problem is our past and future, they hijack our present. Or we allow it to. We fail to recognize that all experiences, all relative experiences are happening only in the here and now. Even if you are imagining of the most wonderful thing, it is still happening here and now. So from ocean's point of view, the wave may move from one place to the other, but ocean is everywhere. So where will the wave move? From ocean's point of view, it is always there only where it is supposed to be. Because from ocean's point of view, space has no meaning, because he's all pervading. You may go from India to Australia, or Australia to America, but from space point of view, you have not gone anywhere. From Earth point of view, you have not gone anywhere, because wherever you go, there the Earth is. Wherever you go, there the space is. But when we become the thoughts, then the problem begins. You be the mind. Wherever the thought goes, who cares? I am the mind. I am always there. See, this is undoing the knot. This is undoing the Hridaya Granthi. Which we have created by our wrong approach. So always think of those thoughts which unite everything. Instead of going out there in the world and creating differences, that person said this thing about you, that why there is war between India and Pakistan, why there is war between Israel and Palestine, why China is like this, why America is like that, why these people are like that, why people don't help the poor people, why rich are getting richer and poor are getting poorer. This is propagating differences. Can you choose thoughts which bring about unity? Will that stop? It will continue. But what is your angle of approach towards all this? Your thoughts of unity will be, when has there been a time in this human race when these things have not happened? Story over. Never. Okay. Chhod do. Not my responsibility. If it is your responsibility, you are inspired, then go and do something, but don't complain. Or you come to this satsang, oh, manifest alone is expressing as manifest. Oh, unmanifest. Unmanifest is absence. Absence is that which is not. that which is not is expressing as this whole creation. अच्छा फिर ये सारा ड्रामा चल रहा है, चलने तो ड्रामा, अपने को क्या लेना देना. Again say, you come back to the unifying principle. What is the unifying principle? Ananda, or the avyakta, or the unmanifest. You are worry free then. Otherwise, continuously the striving that is going on in our life, the striving that is going on in the river. Why? It has to reach somewhere. Striving that is going on, that results in frustration, friction, restlessness. Where will the wave strive? In what manner will it strive to be the water? Because it is already water. Then where is it striving? Only in its imagination, isn't it? You're understanding what we are saying? The striving of the wave is only in its imagination. It is already water. The river is striving to one with the ocean because it has accepted, I am a river. It has not accepted, I am the water. If it had accepted, I am the water, then then it will still continue, but there will be no restlessness. There will be no agitation. There will be no desire. Because phenomena will go on. Where are we? Have we accepted that we are essentially consciousness? Or are we still in the zone of relations and possessions, giving too much importance to that and becoming restless, becoming agitated, becoming frustrated, and then wondering why the self is not revealing, why the God is not gracing us? Because we have stupidly given the differences the importance. Then what is to be done? Look at the differences, but give importance to the cause, to the base, to the principle which is manifesting as the differences. There and then, that very moment, you will be absolutely comfortable. See? So from the ocean's point of view, movement of waves has no meaning, because ocean is everything. It doesn't see the wave as separate to itself. If we take the position of the ocean, totality, we are not talking absolute. Absolute means no waves only. But from the relative point, take the position, rather than taking the position of individuality, entertain thoughts of totality. Then from that point of view, all the thoughts are in me only. No disturbance then. Whom will I hate and whom will I love? Whom will I say this is mine and that is not mine? Everything is me only. Sahasra Shersha Purushaha Sahasraksha Sahasrapat. Okay. This is called integration, integrating ourselves, our mind. This is called yoga. The wave is always here in the ocean, not there out of it. Wave cannot have an existence outside the ocean. Similarly, thoughts cannot have an existence outside of the consciousness. take one step before, more gross. Thoughts cannot have existence outside the mind. Can they? So what are the thoughts about? Everything in this creation, isn't it? Brahma, Vishnu, Mahesh, Ishvara, Shakti, waking, dream, sleep, cosmos, galaxies, black holes, everything, 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 past, future. Thoughts are always about these things. So, and what is the basis? The mind. So, where is the whole creation? Is it outside the mind, which is your experience right now? If you consider it outside the mind, then you want to belong to someone, you want to have a relationship with someone, you hate someone, you are jealous of someone, you are envious of someone, you want to own someone or something. But when everything is in me, everything is in the mind, then whom will I hate and whom will I love? Then what I will seek and what I will not seek? Will there be a desire? When everything is my mind alone, then how there will be a desire in that mind for anything? Point to be noted and contemplated. Pure consciousness is the truth, and it is far beyond the presence or absence of Satchidananda. Pure consciousness is the truth, and it is far beyond. Far beyond means it is transcendental. Pure consciousness is that from that standpoint, from the absolute standpoint, there is not even an iota of recognition of Sat Chit Ananda. When it is told in our scriptures that the entire creation is only a tiny dot on the right toenail of Lord Narayana, they say isn't it? Means it's insignificant. And how we are living? We have given up our infinite consciousness and we have taken that insignificant creation as real and living as and drooling like a dog for that creation. And then we wonder, why are we miserable? Why are we in pain? Why are we agitated? Because you have made the mistake of giving it the reality and forgetting that you are the source, that you are all that there is in essence. Now, who's to blame? God? How the three qualities of Sat, Chit and Anand cannot be separated from each other is explained further. Satta chi ki sukha prakashu, prakashati satta ulhasu, he na nivade mithanshu, amruti zevi. He says, the existence is consciousness bliss. The consciousness is blissful existence. These cannot be separated from each other as the sweetness from the nectar. Now, we are not talking about the absolute. Just like ocean, water, ocean and wave are one only, isn't it? Water, ocean, and one are one only. From water's point of view, there is no ocean and wave. From ocean's point of view, there is no wave. And from wave's point of view, ocean is, I can't imagine, oh God, oh my God, ocean. And or water, oh, what is water? I don't know what is water. I don't know where is water. Oh, I have to seek. Is that what reality of mine is? Oh, I have to seek it. I have to seek it. It's not even in its imagination. Can't even imagine it. So existence is consciousness, bliss. The consciousness is blissful existence. So first is existence. Existence is satta. Satta is that which is always. Everything is in this creation. When I become conscious that, here it says, existence is conscious bliss. So that existence alone is expressing as conscious bliss, just like the ocean alone is expressing as the wave. Wave is not outside the ocean. Similarly, this conscious bliss is not other than the existence. I gave you the example of waking up, relate to that. And then the consciousness is blissful existence. When we become conscious of ourselves, it should express as blissful existence. But we as individuals, we have got it upside down, so we live a miserable existence. We should be living a blissful existence every moment, because that is the way it is. Then where is the dukkham? It is imagined. Why is it imagined? Because you gave importance to the duality. Why you gave importance to duality? Because you identified with it, gave value to it, gave importance to it. Why you gave importance and value? Because you thought it is separate to you. Start correcting your errors. Don't see as, I can give value to you, Usha, because I see Usha is there. But do I feel? If I accept that you are not, everything is one, then whom will I give value to? There is no one else other than me, other to give value to give importance to have association with, to have a relation with, to have competition with, to compare with, because everything is one. Ocean has got no love or hatred towards any wave. That's exactly how our mind is also functioning. Mind has got no love or hatred towards any thought. Therefore, it allows all the types of thoughts to come and go. This ghost ego is the one which creates the trouble. What is that? Identification, wrong identification. Who is the owner of all these thoughts? Is there any owner of all the waves in the ocean? No. Ocean says everything, it is going on, man, let it go on. He doesn't own. Then why are we owning? The moment you own, immediately a fictitious personality is born, the owner. That owner of thoughts then expresses as different ways. So we are not addressing the mind, we are addressing this fellow who has taken the ownership. And how we are owning, how we are addressing this fellow? Through the thoughts, because he has owned the thoughts. See the drama. This fellow fictitious fellow has owned the thoughts that they are mine, my thoughts. So now, if he has to be correct, if he has to be reoriented, transformed, then we can't change him. Then what can we do? At least at the relative level, we change the quality of thoughts. So what he relates, first he was relating with tamasic thoughts, then we change it to rajasic. Now he starts relating to rajasic thoughts. Then we change that into sattvic thoughts. Then he starts relating to sattvic thoughts. So his assessment of himself is based on objectivity. You understand? The I's assessment of itself, just like your assessment of yourself, is on the reflection in the mirror. So this fictitious personality's assessment of itself is depending upon the reflection, which is the thoughts. So we are changing the thoughts from rajasic, tamasic to rajasic, rajasic to sattvic, sattvic to transcendental, which do not leave. So slowly we are reforming him. Rehabilitation of this fictitious personality is going on. And eventually we tell him, hey, you are not there only in the first place. But you tell him when he is so identified with the body, he will not accept it. Then what does he do? He leaves the satsang because he cannot hack it. But slow and steady transformation, rehabilitation, just like we make a druggie to become rehabilitated and he becomes free of drug, meaning he needs a continuous hit of the drug or alcohol in order to be in that dull state or in drugged state where he's far away from reality. Same is this fictitious personality. It needs a continuous dose, daily dose of drug. What is that? Objectivity, to maintain its existence as individual. See how much disservice we are doing to ourselves. And then we don't stop there. Then in that individual, we imagine we are mother, father, daughter, sister, and each one of them has their own obsession to keep themselves maintained. They need that dose again and again, by way of thought, by way of interaction, by way of association, by way of doing something for whoever they are thinking about, for their survival. The mother needs to survive, and she can only survive by thinking of kids. The wife needs to survive by only thinking about the husband. Ego survives by thinking about the mother, the daughter, the sister, the brother, and so on. This is all addiction. And what scriptures or such type of texts are doing for us is they are rehabilitating. Mind has got no problem. It comes up with good thoughts, it comes up with bad thoughts, and it lets it go also. That is what is happening every day, isn't it? Every moment it is happening. Why only at night when you go to sleep? Every moment one thought comes, then it goes away. Then next thought comes, then it goes away. So mind has got no problem. We are not teaching the mind here. We are teaching this fellow, the imaginary fellow, the fictitious fellow called the ego, the one who has owned all this as real. His rehabilitation is going on. And if you are understanding what I am saying here, fantastic. Because then you have not understood anything. And if you are laughing, it is only because you are becoming aware of the foolishness of our being. as individual. See? मजा आ रहा है मेरे को तो वो सोच सोच के देखो. Existence is consciousness bliss, and consciousness is blissful existence. These three cannot be separated from each other, just as sweetness and nectar cannot be separated from each other. Just as the water, ocean, and the wave cannot be separated from each other. Just as the wife, the daughter, the sister cannot be separated from the woman. Just as the thoughts cannot be separated from the mind. Exactly the same way. Existence, consciousness, and bliss cannot be separated from each other. They are intrinsically one. Just as the ornament cannot be separated from the gold, the pot cannot be separated from the mud. Bliss cannot be separated from the consciousness. Consciousness cannot be separated from the existence. They are intrinsically one. Example taken here is, just as sweetness and nectar cannot be separated from each other. In the absolute truth, the relative expressions of Sat, Asat, etc. have no meaning, because when absolute is talked about, relativity is automatically implied to be imaginary. Isn't that your experience? When you are dreaming last night, it was so real, but the moment you woke up, your conclusion is dream was imaginary, wasn't it? Is that, have you ever taken the dream to be any other way but an imagination? Therefore, you give it zero value after waking up. So from absolute point of view, relativity has got no meaning. So now you woke up from the dream. So from a Rajasic dream, you came into Sattvic dream now. Or from a Tamasic dream of nothingness, you came into Rajasic dream of the dream, and from there you woke up into waking dream, which is the Sattvic dream. And Sattva is a state where what is nothing, deep sleep, zero. Dream, Rajasic dream, where thought and the object are thought only, there the things are going too fast, so you cannot catch anything. You can live lifetimes. But in the waking dream, this is where we are having this satsang. This satsang is possible. Why? Because our thought flow is considerably slow as compared to the dream, isn't it? Considerably slow. And when we sit in meditation, it becomes even slower. See? And as we make it slower, or we become disconnected from all the thought fluctuations in our mind, and it clicks to us that we are the constant principle, that very moment, we have woken up to ourselves. From that moment on, the waking dream, not the dream, but the waking dream will have zero value to us, just as when we woke up this morning, the dream has zero value to us. See? So you're all wise people, because you wake up in the morning and say the dream it was just an imagination. But then something shifts. and we become ignorant. Why? We take the waking to be real and we hold on to it. And we continue to stretch it into tomorrow and day after tomorrow and pull it from yesterday. All that is foolishness. So what is the point that the Jnaneshwar Maharaj is trying to convey here to us? That from the absolute point, all relativity is null and void. All divisions, all separation, all sense of otherness, all duality is null and void. Where is the duality? Only in the expression. In the absolute, there is no duality possible. Now, question is, what do you consider? That is the principle. Now, what do you consider yourself? Do you consider to be the absolute, or do you consider yourself to be the expression? What do you mean by consider myself to be absolute? That I was born on this date and my birthday is coming tomorrow. This is expression. Immediately you have sabotaged the whole satsang. That thought has gone to your birth. If the thought has gone to the past, again you have sabotaged the whole satsang, whole understanding. Because we have invested so much in the past. Because we again and again, any guest comes, we want open up our what do you call phone, and with all the photos we start showing. You know, I was like, this was when we got married, this was when I was a kid, or why my children were so small. Again and again. How much? We are sabotaging. On one hand, we are coming to this satsang, and at the drop of a hat, we are ready to indulge in our past without any alertness that what repercussions will be there of indulging in the past. Because remember, what is action? Manasa vacha kaya. Action is at the level of thought, word, and deed. So thought is also an action. It is a movement. So if you are taking the thought into the past, every action must give a result. And what is action? Movement with ownership. So you are choosing to think of the past. So that means it is karma, thought karma. It will have karma phala. फंस जाओगे पूरी तरह. That is why it is told, do not think of the past again and again. Do not bring up your past under any circumstance. Go to the loo if someone asks you. Or be like Krishna Bhagwan. Change the topic. Change the topic. हाँ वो तो ठीक है यार, life तो चलती रहती है, तुम अपने बारे में बताओ. And when that person starts saying, you are not interested in his history, why you need to know his life past? Go to the loo. Don't come out for 10 minutes. That's why Mahatmas don't go anywhere. That's why Mahatmas are happy with themselves, in themselves. So if they get a room, if they get a tree, no problem. If they get her temple, no problem. Anywhere. They are not attached to place. They are not attached to time. They are not attached to anything. They are not attached to relationships, people. Just like your mind. Your mind is not attached to any thoughts. Therefore, it is allowing all the thoughts to come and go. Mind is by nature sannyasi. See, Mind by nature is sannyasi. Senses are also by nature sannyasi. Then who is this identified fellow? He doesn't exist. है ना मजा? So all relativity is only imaginary. And what is imaginary? That which is existing in its own absence is imaginary, isn't it? Mithya. Phenomena is imaginary. The blueness of the sky is imaginary because sky is not blue, sky is colorless. Rainbow is imaginary. It comes for some time, then it goes away. Your age is imaginary. Your health is imaginary because it never remains the same. So what is imaginary? That which is impermanent, that which is finite, that which is changing is imaginary. Stop giving value to it. In and through the imaginary, bring your attention. Be the constant one. Be the constant one. Don't seek the constant one. Be the constant one. Then what will happen? Then you will move through this imaginary relative world with awareness, unaffected. You'll play the game of life, but not be serious about anything. Because your attention is on or you are the constant principle. Continuing the example, Shukla Pakshi Chiya Soda Divase Vadhati Kala Pari Chandra Matra Sagala Chandri Zevi. The reference to 16 phases and their addition to the moon during the bright fortnight may appear to be true, but the moon is without any one of them in herself. So from the moon's point of view, there are no 16 kalas and the 17th is the full moon. Or the 16th is the full moon. Similarly, that you are the waker, dreamer, sleeper, you are, the 5 Pancha Mahabhutas, the 5 Indriyas, the 5 Karmendriyas, the Mana, Buddhi, Chitta, Ahankar. These are like all the kalas. Atma has got nothing to do with these kalas, just like moon has got nothing to do with the phases of the moon. So what are your phases? Waking, dream, and deep sleep are your phases. Essentially, you have got nothing to do with them. From the Atmic point of view, from the absolute point of view that you are, then the Pancha Mahabhutas, the Panchendriyas, Karmendriyas, 5 breaths, Mana Buddhi, they got nothing to do with you. They are doing what they have to do. Each one is doing what they have to do. Eyes have to see, they cannot do anything but see. Ears have to hear, they cannot do anything but hear. And they are not attached to what they are hearing or not hearing. Eyes are not attached to what they are seeing or not seeing. Nose is not attached to what it is smelling or not smelling. Similarly, breath is not also attached. It doesn't say, I want to go in and not come out. No, it continues. It's nature. Mind is also not attached to any thoughts. Intellect is not also attached to any convictions. Because in childhood, it had different convictions and conclusions about life. In teenage, it had different conclusions and convictions about life. In youth, it had different convictions. So your convictions have also been changing. So intellect is also not attached to any convictions. But some idiot gets born in between while all this is going on and creates a problem for himself. So how do we dissolve this idiot? You give him this data. You give him this data. Ask him to think about it. When he starts thinking about it, without knowing, he will dissolve. Just like that Saul doll went to checked the depth of the ocean, and became one with the ocean. When this idiot starts thinking of this information that is coming by way of Gita, by way of Vedas, by way of this Amrit Anubhav, by interacting with it itself, unknowingly, without a conclusion, important point, without a conclusion, it will dissolve. Just like you dissolve in sleep. But this will be, unlike that, this will be a permanent dissolution. Permanent melting of this idiot called I, who is addicted to the relative. Not by tapas, swadhyaya, reality can be gained. Only through satsang. Satsangatve nissangatvam, nissangatve nirmohatvam, nirmohatve nischala tattvam, nischala tattve jivan muktihi. Just as a child starts accepting himself or herself to be a teenager, then that same teenager accepts himself or herself to be a youth. That same youth accepts himself as a wife or a husband. That same wife or husband accepts themselves as father or mother. That same father or mother start accepting themselves as grandfather or grandmother. Change is going on, no? Where there is constancy. The idiot is changing his definition of himself. I'm talking about the idiot, not the reality. So if this idiot has become interested in how big an idiot I am, so he comes to the scriptures. He wants to reach the epitome of idiocy, stupidity. And when he comes to this, on one hand, he laughs at his own stupidity. And on the other hand, the more he laughs, the more he melts. The more he laughs and the more he interacts in the satsang, listens to the satsang. Chip by chip, the crystallization of personality starts dissolving. Without him doing anything, merely by exposing to the satsang. That's the power of satsang. Nischala tattvam, nischala tattve jivan mukti. Bhaj Govindam, Bhaj Govindam. Govindam bhaja moodhamate. There also the stupid fellow is being talked about. Moodhamate. The one who thinks himself as great is the stupid fellow. See? In the bright fortnight of the moon, it looks as if the 16 phases, kalas, are being added one by one every day. Both from the standpoint of moon herself, there is no such thing as kala, addition, growing or declining, etc. In the moon, other than the moon, there is nothing else. Only when the vision of the moon is objectified from the earth is there a talk of phases of moon, etc. From the subjective point of view of the moon herself, these changes do not exist. We already talked about that. In the same way, now, how this example relates to us. In the same way, in the absolute truth that we are, in essence, other than this I, all the other qualities such as Satchidananda or Asat Achit Dukkha have no meaning. I, the pure existence, may or may not manifest. It makes no difference to the I. As in the known, other than the knower, nothing else is, so also in I, the absolute, nothing else is. The way the water is not affected by the presence or absence of the ocean or the wave. Gold is not affected by the presence of the ornaments. Because he has become a necklace and goes around the neck, oh, I think there is a blessing upon me this time. And then he's melted and put into the, what you call, into the ankle. Oh, why demotion for me? Gold is saying. Gold has no problem, isn't it? Unaffected. Similarly, from absolute point of view, there is no, no, how can I say, no acceptance, or from the absolute standpoint, there is nothing called a relative. Then why are we using the word relative? There is nothing called relative from absolute standpoint, because you are in the relative at this moment. This is your reality. What is your reality? Me versus you. You see things separate to yourself. You see past and future. You see the opposites, inside, outside. So that is called relative. So this person, this I who has accepted himself to be a relative, he forgets that he is relative. He thinks he is permanent because yesterday also I was, today also I am, tomorrow also I'll be. But he doesn't realize that what was there yesterday, what is there today, and what will be there tomorrow is the absolute self. But he superimposes that on the body, on the mind, on the world, and says the same world and the same body was yesterday, same world and the same body is today, same world and the same body will be tomorrow. And that is not the truth. When analyzed, even if you just scratch the surface, you find that everything is changing. Your body has changed, your thoughts have changed, your experiences have changed, your children have changed, your house has deteriorated by one day. Depression, no, what do you call? Depression, no, what do you call that? In tax, what they call? Depreciation. The house has got depreciated in value. The moment you buy a new car, fantastic, 40, 50, 70, 100,000 car, next day, 10, 15,000 gone. Very next day. The moment you buy it, it's got depreciated by 10, 15,000. So who is getting depreciated in this? All the relative, meaning all that which is changing. What is changing? Everything other than the self is changing. Anatma is changing. That is getting depreciated. That is impermanent. That is finite. I never gets changed. I is ever the same. Catch this about yourself. We'll look at this in our next class. Keep catching yourself for the next week. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om. Hari Om.